Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in on this Thursday. It is Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you. Looking forward to another fun day as we head into the weekend. Getting closer to that each and every day, obviously. Tomorrow's Friday. Indiana travels to Ann Arbor this weekend to take on the Wolverines on the gridiron. High school sectionals. Is it championship weekend already? Man. I'm not sure if we'll have to look and see. Are we there at championship Friday already for that? All kinds of things going on. Indiana basketball days away from getting started next Tuesday. The Mike Woodson era kicks off. And don't forget Monday, Mike Woodson show at Southern Stone Restaurant. Last night was out there at Southern Stone for the Tom Allen show. Just all kinds of stuff going on, man. It's happening. The fall is upon us in the fall weather. How are you doing? Hope you're having a great day. Looking at our wonderful peeps joining us. Michael, the music man. 5 lefts already on. Thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate you. Jake Query. Back in radio. Good for him, our good friend. So looking forward to hearing about that. Behind enemy lines, man. Indiana has to travel to Michigan, a place they have not won since, what was it, 67, I think, the last time they won in Ann Arbor? I'm trying to think. And before this season, I thought that Indiana had a solid shot to win in Ann Arbor. Of course, a lot of things have changed since then. The play of Indiana first and foremost, but also the injuries that have taken place there. But I thought Michigan, to be honest with you, I picked them to beat Michigan State last week. I was a little surprised to see them go down. I was on another show last night with some Michigan guys, and I told them, I said, man, I was a little surprised to see them go down because having seen Michigan State play against Indiana, and Indiana could have easily won that game, I thought that the Wolverines would take that game, but didn't happen. But we'll see how that turns out. Could Indiana shock people in Ann Arbor this weekend? It's not impossible. Donovan McCulley getting his second start as a true freshman. He looked better and better as the game went on last week. But this is, you talk about the test of all tests for a young guy as the good peeps continue to join us. Hello, Forrest, Tim, Ryan, Ross, all joining us from all over, from points all over. We love that. But what was I saying about, you talk about a test. Donovan McCulley was playing, I just talked about, asking, is tonight the high school sectional championships? Regardless, this is what he was playing in last year. He was playing in front of a couple thousand fans for a sectional title a year ago. Tomorrow, or Saturday rather, he will be in front of 110,000 fervent Michigan fans. You talk about a change in scenery. Yeah, that's big time. And to be able to handle that shows maturity. I mean, I think he showed a lot of maturity last week as he continued to get better in that game. But man, 110,000, that's a big group to jump in front of. Go to thehoosier.com and you can get all your updates. You can check out what Michigan has to offer. And Cade McNamara, he's had a strong season for Michigan thus far. J.J. McCarthy. So they've got some weapons to throw at Indiana. But does Indiana have something to throw back? Indiana has to change something. You cannot continue banging your head against the wall and expecting a different result. Definition of insanity, right? So they've got to do something different. Brian, how are you, sir? Joining us. Donald, the truth. Robert, how are you, sir? Good friend Pete. All kinds of guys jumping on early and often. We appreciate you guys. Fire your questions up, as a matter of fact. What are your questions, comments on the program today? Let us know what's our lineup, John.
We're going to have Dustin Schutte joining us here in a few minutes, hopefully for a couple segments. Then we're going to have Chris Denari here talk about the Pacers at 10 o'clock. Excuse me. And then we're also going to have Michigan. It's not Rivals guy, is it? It's a writer, Clayton Sayfie.
Yep. Looking forward to talking to him, getting the Michigan perspective on things, as we do each and every week. Try to give you the cross side of things. Major points probably look for this week. Mistakes, man. Indiana has to play mistake-free to have any chance in that game. And it's not that it's impossible, because they have a good defense. The defense kind of went south in the last couple of weeks. They've got to find themselves back. And while playing on the road is certainly a difficult thing to do, especially in an environment like the Big House, if you've never been there, and I'm sure most of you haven't, it is the loudest place I have personally ever been in. As far as when the game's going on, I remember being there, and it was just, it's just loud. That's all you can say. It's below grade somewhat. This part of the stadium is below grade, and it's just big. And we talked last year during the season, the difference is how things were being made because you didn't have all that. And some of those teams like Michigan, like Penn State, like Ohio State, who have an inherent advantage built into each and every home game they play because they have 100,000 people cheering them on or cheering against the offense. That's something that a lot of teams just cannot offer. So the sectional titles are tonight, all over the place. Tim mentions New Albany's playing Seymour for their first sectional title in 20 years. No one was born on the team the last time New Albany won a sectional. There you go. So someone's going to be happy. Robert says, you know what time it is? It's basketball season. Well, almost. Not quite. Ross hated to see IU football lose another player per the IDS.
I just looked into that because I saw that comment he made. It's not a transfer. I kind of thought whenever I saw the comment that he was referring to somebody jumping in the transfer portal, but
yeah,
if I saw what he saw, freshman wide receiver Connor Delp is out indefinitely. I don't know if it has to do with an injury or a suspension or what's going on, but freshman wide receiver.
I'll go ahead and tell you, that's on the suspension side.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with injury or play. And I'll let you figure the rest of it out on your own, but it definitely has to do with a suspension, and just read the news and you can figure the rest of that out. And I'll just leave that alone and let you guys be your own investigators on that. But Connor Delp, I don't know that he had played a lot. I think he was a backup punt returner, a receiver. But of course, anytime you lose anyone that has played, it hurts. But that's a sad deal. We've got games this weekend to look at. I can't wait till Dustin comes on so we can talk about these upcoming Big Ten games this weekend. Of all the Big Ten games this weekend, I'm trying to look Ohio State goes to Nebraska. That's cool for the fact of an Ohio State playing at Nebraska, but trust me, that probably won't be much of a game Illinois travels to Minnesota. Michigan State is at Purdue. Now that is a game that it's on ABC at 3:30. That's a game. Purdue is a team that I cannot figure out. I know that they have great coaching. Jeff Brom is a great offensive mind. They've really changed their defense. They've had some success, but then they lose games that surprise me. So, and Michigan State, number 5, Michigan State. Like I said, I've seen them play. They're okay. I don't think they're not the number 5 team in the country.
Or according to the college football playoff rankings, number 3, Michigan State.
Yeah, the last couple of years, teams like last year when you had North Carolina up there, which was a joke. There are Cincinnati. They are not one of the top 5 teams in the country. I've seen them play. Michigan State is not one of the top 5 teams in the country. I've seen them play. And Penn State, who looked good early, now they're down to 22. They're at Maryland. Can Maryland put on another show like they did against Indiana with the passing game? If so, could they give Penn State troubles? We'll see. Wisconsin travels to Rutgers. That should be a cakewalk for Wisconsin. Number 19, Iowa, another team that had made it up to the top 5 early on. Indiana made them look good, and then all of a sudden they start losing like they shouldn't have. They're at Northwestern. That should be another easy win for Iowa. And, of course, Indiana travels to number 9, Michigan. Indiana taking on yet again. What is this? 6th or 7th top 10 team? Somebody count that up for me. Because this is another top 10 opponent. Hell, I can go through the Big Ten and look and see how many they've already played. Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State was a top 10 team. Iowa was a top 10 team. Michigan, top 10 team. Cincinnati, they're 6. There is no way a college football team has played 6 top 10 teams in a regular season schedule. I can't recall that ever happening. I mean, it's amazing. It's utterly amazing, the difficulty of Indiana's schedule. And normally that would be a great or something you could use as an excuse, but it's not. Because Indiana should have beaten Cincinnati and they should have beaten Michigan State. And the other ones, you could live with those. But wow, you talk about the roughest schedule in the history of a regular season. That's got to be up there, man. It's got to be up there. Forrest says Indiana's going to have to score 30 to have a chance. Oh, I absolutely agree with that. They have got to score points, which is something they have not been doing. For Forrest, it's a toss-up between Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State for crowd noise. I haven't been to Penn State. I've been to Ohio State. And, again, I think just because, like I said, the Big House is set below grade somewhat, first of all. And it's completely circular, whereas the shoe, the end is enclosed now. It didn't used to be. But I'm definitely going with the Big House. Tim says IU averaged 32.6% as a team, 206 in team 3-point shooting last year. Oh, we're talking basketball. He's switching around on me. We'll come back to basketball. Dwayne jumping on. Saying hey. So we got all kinds of people jump on. We appreciate you guys. Looking forward to talking to Dustin Schutte when he gets here as well.
He's here. We can go to break.
Hey, cool. Well, we've got Dustin with us, and we've got plenty to talk about when he come back. We'll do it right here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by the good folks from Southern Stone Restaurant, the home of the IU football and basketball coaches shows, located at Patterson and Rogers. Was there last night. Basketball coaches show starts this Monday with Coach Woody. So make sure you go out there. We'll be back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration, Southern Stone. Dun, 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 dun,
Hey, Dustin, don't feel obligated to say yes to this, but we had our 9:40 guest drop. Are you able to do 2 segments or no?
No, I don't have anybody. Okay. I don't have anybody to help me today. So
do you need me to get to try to find you some guys to help you? Like, no, I'm not being. I'm serious. There's all kinds of people that can write up here that could.
If they want to do freelance contract work, yeah, you can give them my info and we can pass it along because
what would they have to cover?
Everything.
Just Big Ten, Big Ten football though.
We do, yeah. So we need news writers. So,
news. And when you say news, are you talking Big Ten football news or college football news?
Mostly Big Ten.
All right, I'm gonna reach out to because there's all kinds of the media school and
right. Yeah, that would be
Big Ten.
Because I know you're under gun, and I hate that. So I know what that's like.
It's crazy. I've never. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is with everything.
Where did they go?
I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, and I have something to talk to you about. Remember my idea?
Yep.
I can't, say it now, but someone that I know has not done that, but they've done the first part of that.
Okay.
By leaving.
Gotcha.
Which shocked the hell out of me for who it was.
Interesting.
Because it's 4 of them.
They
own 4. They own 4 of them.
I'm trying to speak in code.
I'm trying to figure out.
Hey, how about your Pacers too?
Oh man, 2
game
Braves.
What?
What about his Braves?
The Braves. He's
about the frickin' Braves.
He does.
I'm kidding. Oh. I'll give him some love on his Braves because I didn't like Houston. So,
well, that's true.
All right. On that thought, here we go.
The Big Ten. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place your podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Jim Coyle with you here on this Thursday, as is Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Talking a lot of football, of course, to the Big Ten. Before we get to that, though, he's a big Pacers fan. How about your Pacers?
2 in a row. I was excited. I didn't catch the entirety of last night's game, but that was a good win. They were on they had a 15-point lead in the third quarter, kind of blew it a little bit, but they responded nicely. I was excited to see this team looks completely different with Karis LeVert back in the lineup, having another scorer, having somebody else to rely on. I think that makes a huge difference, not just in the fact that you're getting scoring, but then when you factor in that you don't have to rely so deep into the bench. I think it's been a good sign. Miles Turner was outstanding. 7 3-pointers. I think he made 7 of 10. He was repping Antonio Davis walking into the locker room. So even though they got off to a 1-6 start, I'm fired up about this team and what they can do with Karis back in the lineup. And TJ Warren, it sounds like he could be back sooner rather than later. So this team, even though it's not been pretty through the first couple weeks, I think it's going to get a lot better here in the next couple weeks.
Well, starting off 1-6 as the Pacers is a hell of a lot better than starting off 0-3 and 2-5 as the Colts.
That's true.
Big, a lot easier to turn that ship around and miss the iceberg than it is with this one here. And you can just see the difference. So, I mean, they were giving up 200 points a game early on in the season. It's like it seemed like they were getting beat 200 to 100. But yeah, what a difference keeping. Who was it they beat last night? The Knicks, under 100 points. So they kept them under 100 points, where the game before, the Spurs scored 118. So they had just been allowing too many points early on in the season. But of course, when you don't have some of your guys to play defense, that matters. But yeah, Karis LeVert, man, the gel, the glue.
Yeah, I mean, he's an elite scorer, and when you pair him with the fact that Chris Duarte, I'm about to call him a freshman, the rookie, when he steps onto the floor and he's able to knock down some shots the way he has, even though they've struggled, he's been pretty clutch through his first 7 games as a Pacer, or first 9 games now, I guess it is, as a Pacer. So I just like this team's dynamic. I like their ability to score. I think this group still has some work to do on the defensive end. As you mentioned, at some points they've been giving up way too many points. But at the same time, they're still kind of learning under Rick Carlisle. They're still trying to figure out how they're going to stagger or play together Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. At times it's looked good. At other times, I mean, there have been some games where this team just looks dog tired. And I think, again, you go back to some of the pieces that they're missing, some of the guys who have been absent. I mean, that opening night roster already had 6 injuries on it. So you don't have a full roster. You're having to play 8-9 guys rotation. I mean, that wears you out even during a 9-game stretch. So it's nice to not only have that scoring back, but then to also have that depth where you can alleviate some of the pressure off your bench and off your starters. So again, it's not been pretty, but I think this is going to get a lot better, especially if you get TJ Warren back.
Man, we've got a lot of people jumped on already on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Joe Carter. I know a Joe Carter. I don't know if it's the same one or not. Joe, are you down in Southern Indiana? Forrest, I was talking about college football stadiums earlier, the Big Ten specifically, and that, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, no one has a built-in advantage like they do with 100 plus. And last year, I remember talking about all the games that were being played, without fans, and how a difference that it made. And it would be cool if you could actually have that difference all the time, because it gives an inherent advantage to those schools. But I guess that's part of having built up a program. But to me, the Big House is without question the loudest place I have ever been in, period. Forrest said that he went with a couple others. He just mentioned that he hasn't been to Penn State either. He's been to Michigan and Ohio State, though. Penn State has that whiteout crowd. Oh, it's brutal. Oh, they're all 3 brutal. Trust me, it makes a gigantic difference. Tim says Florida State has had 2 defensive linemen decommit yesterday. One of them, Indiana, was courting, I guess, and made them top schools before committing to Florida State. Who knows? That would be great for Indiana to pick up. Pete, having LeVert, Brogdon, and Duarte on the floor, more depth. Now with LeVert back, absolutely. No boot for Warren, which was good. Yep. TJ Warren, yeah, his looked like his return is sooner rather than later, so that'll be good as well. Let's see. What was that? There was something specific I was thinking about in college football this week, but the big games that are coming up this week as the season starts to wind down. What are some of the games that they're really standing out to you?
Well, to me, when you look at the Big Ten, I think probably this kind of indicates where the week is. And we've talked about last week was kind of that monumental, that marquee weekend where you had Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State. You had some other really good matchups. This week, I think that the marquee matchup and the one that everybody's going to keep an eye on is that Purdue-Michigan State game, because of the way Purdue went into Iowa a few weeks ago and down the Hawkeyes when they were ranked number 2. Michigan State comes into West Lafayette ranked number 3 in the college football playoff poll. What's interesting to me about this game isn't just the fact that I think Purdue's a little bit better than they get credit for, but I think at the same time, Michigan State is coming off this game. They had to overcome a 10-point deficit. They had to overcome a 16-point deficit. It's an emotional game. The stakes are high. How are they going to respond? And Mel Tucker kind of dismissed this as a trap game. But I think that there's a little there is some opportunity here for Michigan State to maybe play a little relaxed at some point. You know, that number 3 ranking, being undefeated, beating your biggest rival for the season. So that's the game that really interests me. And then I think the other game, you know, we'll talk about, and I'm sure with Indiana and Michigan. I mean, what's Indiana going to look like offensively? This is probably going to be one of the better defensive teams they've faced this season. Michigan obviously is going to be coming in angry because they just got beat in the fourth quarter against Michigan State on the road. And the thing to me, Jim, at this point, I don't know how anybody else feels or what you've talked about this week, but to me, I know it was just Maryland, but I think Donovan McCulley has to be your guy. I mean, I don't know why you would go back to Michael Penix or Jack Tuttle, even if they are healthy at this point. Just play Donovan McCulley. The offense looked better. Stephen Carr was able to run the football. 14 of 25, 15 of 25, something in that category. 2 touchdowns, no picks.
You have to. There's no question. And before, funny, you picked out the Michigan State Purdue game, as did I, and we'll go back to that. But I agree with you 1,000%. You've already has he played 4 games yet?
That's a good question. He's played at least 2. Ohio State, Maryland. I don't know about before that.
Because regardless, there's no way you don't blow his redshirt year. It's gone. So he plays every freaking snap to me. If the red shirt is gone, you play every stinking snap. He has got to get every page of learning that he can get. Everything he can get against every team, every environment, every situation, whether that is on the road at Michigan. And I know, and I just talked about before you joined us, 1 year ago, tonight's the sectional championships in Indiana, high school football. And 1 year ago, he was playing in a sectional championship in front of 3,000 people. Tomorrow or Saturday, he'll be playing in front of 110,000 people in the big house on a national television audience. And that's a big jump, but you got to do it. And I think that he showed the capabilities because he got better every snap last week. He was more comfortable.
Yes.
He's an athlete beyond. He has the capabilities. Now you just have to put him in the right position. This is going to be up to Nick Sheridan to put him in the right position and to call the right plays and the rest of the team. He's got to get help from an offensive line that has not been that helpful this season. They've got to protect him. And if you're not getting that protection, then you call plays that doesn't put him in a position to get hurt or all that. But Indiana has to delicately balance the remainder of this season between trying to win and trying to teach.
Well, and I think that at this point, I know Tom Allen isn't thinking this, but you almost concede bowl eligibility at this point. I mean, they're not going to win their final 4 games. They might win a couple, but they're not going to win their
concede it for them. It's over.
And I don't want people to jump out of their seat when I make this comparison, but what you saw from Donovan McCulley, I think as that game progressed, was similar to what you saw from C.J. Stroud in week 1 on the road against Minnesota. He did not look great in that first half, but in the second half, he came out, and I think he had 4 touchdown passes on 5 completions. Obviously, C.J. Stroud is way up here, and Donovan McCulley is down here. But I think when you talk about the comfort level, that's exactly what you mean. As the game went along, he got settled. And the dynamic I think he gives them and why the offense looked better. I mean, the first 4 games, they scored 28 points. He goes out and he puts up 35 in his first game. Again, I know it's a Maryland defense that isn't nearly as good as Cincinnati, Ohio State, Michigan State, some of those other teams that they've played. But at the same time, Jack Tuttle and Michael Penix, when they're dropping back, they're basically statues. They're no threat to run. Donovan McCulley at least provides that athleticism to get them out of the pocket, to maybe throw on the run a little bit more. He's not as cautious. He doesn't have the lingering thought of I might get hurt when both Tuttle and Penix have had to deal with injuries this season. So at this point, I think you just play him. And again, I think it's important that you say that you don't want him running 20 yards, down the field, taking every hit. You want him to slide, get out of bounds. But he does provide that athleticism, that mobility that those other 2 guys don't. And that's why, again, even though it's against a mediocre Maryland defense, that is why I think that the offense looked much better than what it did in the previous, what are we at now, 8 games, previous 7 games.
Scott says that this would be Donovan's 4th game, and I suspected. I mean, you write that out. That's gone.
Yeah.
And you got to forget about the red shirt. Why? I don't understand why they're thinking about 4 years from now in this day and age, and how college athletics, college football has changed in the last 2 years. Forget about 4 years. I don't know why any coach is thinking about 4 years from now right now. That dream is over. That ship sailed. I mean, you've got the transfer portal, these guys coming and going left and right. 4 years, the dream of having a kid for 4 years, I think is just that, a dream now. Because if they get good, they're gone. Right. And it's not to say that it can't happen, but yeah, forget about this 4-year dream. You need to think about winning today and winning tomorrow, not winning 4 years from now. This is today, right now, right here, right now. But that's seriously, I think. I mean, you forget about that 4-year dream.
Right. Well, and I think again, we've talked about this at length, mostly with the coaching staff, but I think there's a degree of loyalty that Tom Allen feels to maybe a guy like Michael Penix or to Jack Tuttle. But at this point,
there you go. That loyalty thing, it's been Tom Allen is loyal to a fault.
Yep.
And I can talk about that all day long. I love Tom Allen.
I do too. Yeah.
His loyalty has bit him as much as it has helped him.
Yeah. And I think that at this point, you have to do what's best for the program. I know that Michael Penix has done some really good things in an Indiana uniform, but when I look at this roster, I look at the quarterback room. In my opinion, I think Donovan McCulley is going to be your next guy, and then you're bringing in a guy like Josh Hoover, who is probably under-recruited, he's got some talent.
Dude,
he's got, in my opinion,
you have no idea how much I like Josh Hoover.
So you've got a pretty good 1-2 punch, even though that's going to be a young room. I think that's one you can develop. And whether Michael Penix and Jack Tuttle decide to stay or transfer out, to me, you have to stick with Donovan McCulley. He looks like the future quarterback. You do have Josh Hoover coming in. You can redshirt him and then get that 2-year gap. Maybe you get 2 years out of him, or maybe he comes in and is the best quarterback we don't know. So basically what I'm saying is at this point, you have to go with a youth movement at quarterback, because what we've seen from Michael Penix and Jack Tuttle, even when both guys are healthy, in my opinion, is not the right answer. And we've talked about, the problem with Nick Sheridan and the play calling, and the offensive line has been bad. I just keep going back to the fact that it looked better against Maryland, and maybe that won't be the case against Michigan this weekend because it is a much better defense. But I think even if it looks slightly better, if you're able to get a couple touchdowns against a pretty good Michigan team, I think that's your answer, that you have to stick with Donovan McCulley and develop him, give him a springboard into the spring and then into next season. And maybe that's, you'll be able to start off a lot better than what you did this year.
Forrest points out Harbaugh is 2-7 against Michigan State, 0-8 against the Bucks. 2-15 against your biggest rivals. No, it doesn't bode well for Harbaugh, but they already knew that going in. So the fact that he is 7-1 right now, and if he goes 10-2, he's not getting fired. I don't care if those 2 losses are against Michigan State and Ohio State, which they probably will be. Right. But the front sevens point out as well. And hey, Joe Carter, good to see you, brother, from down in Southern Indiana. Oh, Floyd Central, appreciate you. That's going to be a fun weekend of games. Any upsets that you see? I know you got to go, but I'm looking down the lineup.
I don't
see.
The
one game that you pointed out that we both talked about is Michigan State, Purdue. Purdue is one of those teams that just, for whatever reason, they every now and then they rear up out of nowhere and they bite you. And I think the Michigan State team is one that can be bitten because they are in no way one of the top 5 teams in the country after having seen them play. I think that they're okay. They've executed well, but executing well is not great. They're okay. And as long as they execute and the other team doesn't, they're going to win some games. But the minute they make a mistake, they're going to get beat by someone that they probably shouldn't get beat by.
Well, I think it's hard to go through a college football season undefeated. I mean, that's why you don't see very many teams doing it. And again, for the reasons that I pointed out, because of the emotion they're coming off of last week, because this is a trap game. I mean, Michigan State still has Penn State and Ohio State on the schedule. So I'm guessing Purdue is, even though Mel Tucker is laser focused on Purdue, I'm guessing that some of these players are looking at least a little bit ahead to those two games. So, and then again, Purdue's been kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde this season. They play really well against Iowa and Nebraska. They lay an egg against Wisconsin and Minnesota. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. The other one, to me, that I'm really interested in is going to be that Maryland-Penn State game, because Maryland is not a great team. They're 5-3. Both teams are 5-3. But Penn State's on a 3-game losing streak, and we saw last year, Jim, how this team, after that loss to Indiana, after that loss to Ohio State, spiraled out of control. They thought that they were going to be Big Ten champions. They thought they were going to go to the college football playoff. And as soon as that was wiped off the board, they kind of just, for a few games, not the entire season, because they did end it on a 4-game winning streak, they kind of just, for lack of a better term, kind of gave up. So I'm interested to see what their mindset is after 3 straight losses, 3 really heartbreaking losses. They had chances to beat Ohio State, Iowa, and Illinois. So I'm going to be, to me, Penn State is the far superior team in this game, but to me, it's all about the mental. And if this team isn't ready to play, I think Maryland's offense is just good enough where they could sneak out an upset.
We'll see about it, brother. I appreciate you. I know you're busy. Got to get out of here. Have a great day. We'll look forward to talking over the weekend and then again next week.
All right. Thanks, Jim. And hopefully I'll be on the full show next week. We'll see.
We'll make sure we'll get you back. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition joining us here, and we got plenty more. Mitchell Paige, my man Mitch, up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with it right after this. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. If you're looking for a deal, Andy Moore Honda's got them. He's got them for you right now, and I'm talking about 0% APR, $0 down, whether it's a brand new Honda Pilot, brand new Honda Passport, they've got it. Get out to Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Back with Mitchell Paige right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, we all need insurance. My man Mitch.
What's up, boys?
Saves the day. When you coming up to B-Town, man?
I don't know. We suck, so why would I go up there?
Well, they've got direct flights to Indianapolis now.
Yeah, but they
Did you
suck.
see that? From Charleston to Indianapolis, direct flights.
That's great. They suck.
They should have you come in and motivational. Just tell them how bad they are and
Guys,
see what happens.
You suck. And yeah.
That's that reminds me of Caddyshack when you're not good. You stink. Chevy
Yeah.
Chase.
We ought to have you get on here and talk
You're not
to
good.
Mr. Eternal
You're not-
Optimist Derek Jackson.
You're not good. You stink.
I'm optimistic.
No, it's
as
truth
well.
telling time, baby. It's truth telling time. That's what we do.
I'm always optimist, but
You are.
sometimes there's some reality.
I've always been the kind of person that as long as you haven't lost your 7th game, I usually have a glimmer of hope. But once that 7th
for
game
sure.
hits, I'm disinterested.
Yeah, for sure. It's last week didn't help the cause. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
There's some hope with the young kid, though. He made some good throws.
Well, I like him, but dude, I'm telling you, I love Josh Hoover. It's going to be a battle between Hoover. I'm telling you, it's going to be a battle between Hoover and McCulley because,
Yeah, I can.
first of all, one of those other guys is leaving. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't
I
know
think they're
where,
both
but
leaving.
I don't. Huh?
Yeah,
I think they're both leaving.
Well, I don't know where Penix is going to go.
He can go play at a group of 5 school. He'll start on any group of 5 team.
You're out of your a group of 5. Yes.
yeah.
I think he can go back home to a Central Florida or Florida International.
Yeah.
But
But it's going to be hard to touch him. He hasn't finished 4 seasons.
Yeah.
you're going to, because you have to give up a scholarship spot at quarterback.
It's pretty valuable.
And not many coaches are going to want to do that because you talk
No.
about the biggest, that's a gigantic gamble.
Yeah.
Also, Jim Mitchell did text me saying if we can talk about something other than football, that would be great.
We can talk
But
about
we
whatever
don't.
the hell we want, brother.
Yeah. I just am sad. Football makes me sad. We suck.
The Colts play tonight for one thing.
I don't watch them. I don't watch football. I watch the Colts, or I watch Indiana, and I watch Miami. University of Miami's got 2 back-to-back top 25 wins. Those are keeping track.
If Kevin,
Hey, here we
was on
go.
with
Here we
us,
go.
you love that.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by AAA Insurance. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday, coming to you. Hey, I mentioned earlier, Indiana high school football. It's this weekend is sectional championship night. Mitchell knows all about it, my brother, from Guerin back in the days at Guerin Catholic.
Oh, yeah. I'm rocking the shirt today to
Oh,
work there.
see? Oh, wow. Didn't even
always.
know that. I didn't even see that.
Hardly home. Always repping.
Did you guys win a sectional when you played?
We did. We made it to semi-state both years. I only played my junior and senior year. I went to Carmel my freshman year and then transferred to Guerin, and Carmel blocked my transfer, so I wasn't allowed to play football as a sophomore. But
Carmel blocked your transfer. Do you know how many times I've heard someone say Carmel blocked a transfer? The biggest freaking school in the damn state with near 6,000 students.
Yeah. It's a extremely large school. I would
extremely. It's the largest damn school I've ever heard of.
Yeah, I would have been fine with it if it was athletically motivated. That's kind of what they argued, but I was fine because my best friends in the world are still my friends from high school. It was the best decision I ever made, and I wouldn't trade anything for the Guerin Catholic experience that I got. That's a little free ad for Guerin because it was the best. I loved it.
It aggravates me that schools have that ability. Now, if it was the opposite and you had left Guerin to go to a bigger school, that would probably make more sense. But the fact that you were leaving Carmel to go to a school that they would not play, that is what? I don't know, 5 classes smaller than they are?
Yeah. At the time when I graduated, we had the biggest class in school history at 112. So we were not on the same playing field. They were in 6A, well 5A, I guess at the time.
Carmel has like 6,000 students, folks.
Yeah,
I know of basketball transfers that they have blocked. The same thing. It's aggravating. That's really aggravating. It's even though it's had nothing to do with me and it's a long time ago, it still aggravates me.
It worked out for me. I still got to go play at Indiana.
Boy,
I got
did
two
you.
of the
Boy,
best
howdy.
experiences in the world, man.
Boy, you talk about someone who worked his butt off to get there. You know, my man Mitch, he goes from Carmel to Guerin, smaller school, not a lot of eyes on you, yet he ends up walking on in Indiana and becoming a superstar.
I don't know about superstar, but I played.
You're always a superstar in my mind, baby.
I know it. You're the best. I wanted, believe it or not, I wanted to play basketball. I just stopped growing. That was like my sport growing up. This is a basketball shirt I got on. Year we won the state championship, actually. So
in basketball?
Yeah, I still got my state championship in basketball. It's kind of cool. All my buddies from Carmel. Year we won was my senior year. All the way up to senior year, we had played on the same AAU team, gone around the country, played on a really good team. We were called the Fieldhouse Hogs. We were black, white, and pink. Had little pigtails on our shorts. And
I remember you telling me this. Didn't you all wear like actual pigtails on your shorts or something?
They were just like stitched in, but yeah, it was pigtails on the shorts, and we had beat teams by 80. It was awesome. It was.
I gotta be honest with you. I don't know that I could have done that. That would have been hard for me to.
Yeah, it was hard. We started doing it in like 4th grade, and in 4th grade, you're really worried about people liking you. So that was a little tough, but once you just accepted it into your heart, I'm a Fieldhouse Hog forever. I'm more of a Fieldhouse Hog than I am an Indiana Hoosier, and that's really saying something.
Earlier, we were talking about Indiana, and I know we're going to talk a lot about it, but actually, I'm just talking about the quarterback situation with you've got Michael Penix and Jack Tuttle, who have both been here for a couple of years and, been back and forth. And now they're both hurt and out, and you're down to Donovan McCulley, who's a true freshman. And assuming both of those guys they're out the rest of the year, I'm going to assume, because now this is going to be Donovan's fourth game, so his red shirt is gone anyway. So to me, he plays every snap. You get him every page that he can turn now from now on. Wherever you're playing, at home, on the road, you give him all the experience he can get now, because you've got to divest yourself into that. Because next year, there's no way that Michael Penix and Jack Tuttle come back next year, in my opinion. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, it would be hard. I don't want to speculate on, that's
right, and that's what I'm doing too. But
yeah, it's a kid's life, but as a just pure numbers thing, it doesn't make sense. You're going to have a true freshman that, even if he just kind of stays on the same path that he did against Maryland, where he shows some flashes, he was average sometimes, and then shows some flashes, that's going to bring some excitement for next season. And you got another kid the kid from Texas, Hoover, that throws a missile. So you're going to have some serious competition. And just from a number standpoint, somebody's got to be the fourth string. And
Hoover's coming up. Hoover's going to be here for January.
Yeah.
So he's coming in to be serious. I mean, if you haven't watched his highlights, go to thehoosier.com. We've got his highlights up. Yeah, I love watching his throws, because it's every different throw. It's whether you're talking zing pass or deep pass or crossing pass or timing pass. He's hitting everything, and he's got such a quick release. And when you're playing in 6A in Texas, you're playing some pretty good, intelligent football down there. And so, I mean, and the numbers he's put up, he's over 9,000 yards for a career.
Sheesh.
It's a lot of yards in 6A Texas, man. That's a lot of yards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been on your show a couple times that I've watched, and I think most impressive. Yeah, he throws a great ball. He spins it like crazy, but he's 18 and he's extremely professional. He handles himself like a leader, and like somebody, when the media comes calling, he's going to buff up his chest and take all the blame and deflect all the praise. And that's kind of what you're looking for in a quarterback. He can beat you in golf
right now.
He couldn't beat me in golf.
His first time out, he shot an 82.
Okay, I don't shoot 82. I would beat him.
That was his first time out, man.
Okay, that's fine. His first time out, he could shoot 74. He couldn't beat me.
Probably, I believe that. Mitch is pretty good on the links,
I'm just
man.
Kidding. I stink. I'm not any good anymore.
Alec Lasley just posted the 2023 big man Austin Parks names the top 5 of Michigan State, Dayton, West Virginia, Ohio State, and Indiana.
Is he from Dayton?
I don't know where he is from, but I'll have to investigate him. But I will say this.
It's a pretty good group of teams.
You normally would not see Dayton involved in there, but the changing of the guard of being able to make money now, the NIL, I've heard that Dayton has a pretty good benefactor, donor. You're going to see college basketball change a little bit. There are schools like Clayton and Dayton who have been on kind of the fringe, but now with NIL, if you happen to have like Oklahoma State, T. Boone Pickens, you got a T. Boone Pickens who writes checks like everyone else changes shirts. That can change a program like that.
Yeah, just like that. That there's nothing more that can be said. Money speaks, money talks, and at least some of the situations that some of these kids are coming from, it's going to be hard to have a better recruiting pitch than that.
And football is a lot tougher to to make that sudden change in basketball, obviously, because of smaller numbers. But
Right.
football is still the quarterback. You get the quarterback. Look at Clemson. I mean, I look at Clemson's troubles as, first of all, is they don't have a Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden.
No.
Because you
No, they do
can't
not.
go from being as dominant as they were to bad as they are. They didn't lose a whole team, but they lost to Trevor Lawrence, and a Trevor Lawrence is a once in a generational type quarterback.
Yeah.
Is
absolutely.
that where their biggest problems are? Is just not having a Trevor Lawrence?
I haven't watched them a ton, but I think what Clemson is seeing, obviously, you expect them to be the best team in the country every year, them and Alabama, and I'll include Ohio State because we're a Big Ten area, but I don't put Ohio State in that category. Kid's young. he's 19 or 20. That's just, sometimes it's not going to be. Kids take some time, some gain experience for the game to slow down, especially at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence had some unbelievable talent around him early that makes it a lot easier. There's even at quarterback, you can get away with some stuff when you have guys that are blowing it up like his receivers and running backs were his first couple years.
Bourbon Barrel Talk hits us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline and asks, do you think that there is anything to Tom Allen to Miami? I don't see Tom Allen personally leaving anywhere right now in the next few years because he just got the new contract. And of course, Indiana's not doing great right now. So that does not, add to the fuel to the fire of him leaving. So I don't see him leaving, going anywhere right now personally, because I think he's got a job that he wants to finish, because he's a guy that he's a very sincere person, and he's not going to look these kids in the eyes and say all that and then leave. Not to say he would never leave, because all coaches leave at some point, but I personally do not see anything to this. But what's your take on that?
I don't either. Mostly because Indiana is not good right now. They have a lot of things to figure out. And yeah, he was talk of the town last year. He was on every ESPN cut up that they did going into commercials. He was kind of like the Cinderella boy, but they aren't good right now. So his stock has gone down a little bit. And then also you look at Miami, we were talking about it in the break. That team was coming off back-to-back top 25 wins. They got a new quarterback that's slinging it. They've got receivers that are making plays. Their defense flies around. They're struggling a little bit tackling right now. But that's where I wanted to go. I was a big Miami Hurricanes fan growing up. So I watched them intently. And they're getting better and better every week. And I think Manny Diaz is there to stay at least for another year, probably a couple more, because they look and play a lot faster than they have in the past couple of years.
Well, someone has to come up. The ACC has been the most horrific conference in college football for a few years now. I mean, ever since Louisville had a little blip where they were competing with Clemson, and it's just been Clemson, and now Clemson's not good. The entire ACC sucks. If you ask me, I don't know how can that many teams suck that bad in a conference? Seriously, those big of schools, but it is. It's like, it's unbelievable how bad the ACC is in football.
Yeah, Miami's, I think, 4-4, and 4-4, and they still control their destiny to get to the ACC championship game. Like, those teams they just lose to each other. There's no team that's stood out as dominant. Nobody's separating themselves like a Clemson does and just runs the table every year and blows people out of the water. It's kind of a fun conference to watch for me, because anything can happen. I don't know if you're a gambler, but stay away from the ACC because literally anything can happen any week.
Oh, yeah. Ross asking me if I read up on cryptocurrency yesterday. I did not, because there's been all this talk of some players getting paid in crypto, whatever. I don't even know what the hell is it? It's not even real, is it?
Yeah,
it's like fake.
I don't know what it is. I'm not smart enough to know what it is. I've done a little bit of research. But like I said, I'm not smart enough to understand it. So I have
It
not
just
invested.
seems like it's something that some people are trying to get people to invest in that isn't really there, that they're trying to create something out of nothing. And I'm like, it's poof. It's not even really there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a gamble. I love talking about this finance stuff, but it's definitely a gamble, and I have a hard time right now seeing some governments in like South America start accepting it as currency, but in a lot of places in the world, you can't.
What is it
based
based on? Like the American dollar, I guess, backed by gold. It's backed by
it's not backed by
a government. So what is this digital currency? So if it's digital currency, can I just have someone print some up for me on a computer?
If you have a lot of power on the computer, I think. I have no idea. I'm not smart enough to know about all that. I stick to straight index funds. I'm a very simple investor.
Indiana travels to the big house this weekend. It's Michigan's coming off of a tough loss to Michigan State. I thought that they were going to beat Michigan State because I saw Michigan State play Indiana. I'm like, they're not that good. Michigan's going to beat them. And they didn't. So that makes the Big Ten is not as good as I thought that they were, for one thing. Ohio State is not as good as Ohio State has been, but they're getting better and stronger and probably will be better at the end of the season. But again, you go on the road, 110,000 people with a true freshman quarterback. It's just a tough ask, man. And I don't see how Indiana has much of a shot in this game.
Yeah, we're going to need kind of similar to some other games this year. Talked about it with Ohio State. You're going to need some kind of electric plays out of the special teams, out of the defense, just to give you a chance. I think even just a good game from Indiana gets them beat. You got to do some kind of spectacular things. I was really disappointed in the defense last week against Maryland.
So
you're kind of shaky. You finally get some offense, and that Tualia kid is pretty good, but
he's not that good.
No, he's not I don't think he's the best quarterback they've played this year for sure.
Well, when you don't get any pressure and you allow him to stand back there and throw the ball, it's not that difficult.
Yeah, I was amazed how much better they played Desmond Ridder, who I think is a baller. I think that kid is really, really good, and they made him look really, really bad. And they kind of let Maryland run wide open, and it was not a good day on defense. And it's, I think, the first time we've really said that all season.
I know you got to get running, but Renata makes a comment, reminds me of you. She says, we call in her house Trevor Lawrence Sunshine due to the movie Remember the Titans, and the character in there that, of course, Ronnie Bass, who they resemble each other. You remind me, you're sunshine to me, man. Every time you're on, you are sunshine.
I don't know about that, but my favorite scene in any movie is when Sunshine and I can't remember the other character's name, but they're sitting on the bench. And he says, "You can throw the ball a mile, can't pitch it 3 feet." And he's worried about, I can't make that pitch, Petey. And Petey, that's what it is. And Petey goes, "You don't got to worry about making that pitch. You're just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the pitch." And I love that. I love that.
Oh, that's right.
It's so good. It's so good. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I've watched that movie 1,000 times with my dad. One of my favorite memories of my childhood, for sure. So awesome. Thank you, Renata, for reminding me of that, of those times. Those are awesome.
Well, buddy, thank you so much as always. We love you, appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys need me, happy to be on. Go Hoosiers.
We love our Mitchell Paige. We're back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this, brought to you by the great folks at AAA Insurance. Be insured by someone who cares about you, especially if you're down in the Southwest Indiana, Southern Illinois area. AAA Insurance has got you covered. Give them a call, 812-477-9966. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
If you're in the market. Thank you, my brother.
Legend. Chris Denari right after me. Thank God I didn't have to follow Chris.
What's up, Mitchell?
Thank goodness I didn't have to follow you. You're actually going to say some smart stuff. Now that people can actually be excited.
You got your Gearing Catholic on.
Oh yeah, you saw that. We talked about it.
We just talked about it. Yeah.
All right,
All
boys. I gotta
good.
go back
What's
to
the
work.
weather like down there?
It's 75 and sunny. Perfect. every day.
Yeah, I hate him.
Yeah.
I hate
So
him.
I'm gonna rub it in. See you later, boys.
Have a good one, brother. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. All good. All good. Good to have Pacer players healthy. Makes a big difference.
Well, we were talking about that earlier, man.
Makes a big difference.
Yes, it does.
What do they? I listened to. I was driving home last night, and Tom Allen's show was on. The Penix and the other guy. They're Tuttle. They're probably out, right?
To me, they're out for the season. I mean, I don't know how you bring either one of them back after going with
McCulley,
especially because this will be his fourth game, which burns his red shirt.
right?
And if you're going to do that, then to me, you've got to give him every single snap that you can give him now for the
Right.
rest of the year.
Right.
And because I don't know which, but there's no way that I think Tuttle and Penix come back.
Yeah.
What game
he's
did
got
he
the-
appear in other than Ohio State and Maryland? Because I know it's the 4-game red shirt rule, but what was the third one?
I don't know. I'm just going by what someone else said. I don't have it. That's not.
I saw that, but I didn't think he played in his third game yet. But maybe I'm wrong.
That is amazing, though, how they've changed that rule. Which I don't mind. I mean, that you can play for. You don't even have to be hurt, right? You can play.
Oh no, yeah, it's just a red shirt thing.
Either way, he's going to play more than 4 games.
I didn't think.
Well,
it
yeah.
looked too bad, really.
Well, I thought he got better as
Yeah.
the snaps went on.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about they've got a kid coming in that will be coming in in January from Texas, Josh Hoover, that I think it's going to be between these two.
Yeah.
I
mean, the thing they always say about players, I mean, the Pacers have faced that, injuries and stuff, but it's being available. And that's the unfortunate, I think Penix he does a nice job, but he's not available. He's always hurt.
That's the greatest saying I ever heard. The greatest
here we go. Sorry to cut off.
ability
I'm coming
is
back.
of dependability.
Yeah.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Thursday, and that means the man, the voice, the legend, Chris Denari of the Indianapolis Pacers joins us on a winning note as the Pacers coming off a big win over the Knicks last night, getting to 3-6, which they're slowly getting back there. I was talking earlier, Chris, about it's a hell of a lot easier to start off 1-6 in the NBA than it is 0-3 and 2-5 in the NFL as the Colts have been. You can certainly, and with their players coming back, see it and get things turned around. And man, they looked really, really good in that win. You just see a difference in the team itself.
Yeah. The last 2 wins you've had, you've started to have more players. Malcolm Brogdon played for the first time last night after missing 3 games. So we finally saw Brogdon and LeVert together in the backcourt. We saw him 21 times last year, had not seen him this year. And then you throw in the rookie Chris Duarte. That gives you 3 very good playmakers out on the perimeter. And then throw in the fact that Miles Turner hit 7 threes last night, scores 25. Sort of a down night for Sabonis. He only had 10 points. He's been averaging 20. It shows you that when you get your players back and you have the significant depth, you're going to be that much better of a team. And so Rick Carlisle was able to manage his rotations. He really only used 8 players last night. 3 players off the bench, McConnell, Craig, and Batase played very well, the third center. So it was a really good win. They jumped out to an 11-0 lead, led by as many as 15. They never trailed last night. They never trailed against a Knicks team that has been off to a really, really good start. New York's been one of the better offensive teams in the league. They were averaging 115 points per game. And I thought the Pacers defense was as good as it's been all year. They held them to 98. So, it was a good win. You needed that at home because now you go out west. You've got 4 straight, 7 of 8, and 8 of 10 on the road before you come back to a home-heavy December. So these last 2 wins against San Antonio and the Knicks were very important.
And you got TJ Warren out of the boot. So there's more good news coming that you can see coming down the road, which just has to just continue to give positive vibes.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that you're getting some positive news. I thought the return of Karis LeVert was huge because it just gives you another playmaker on the floor. He's not shot the ball well, particularly in the last 2 games, but he's a threat. And I use that to be like in a football game. When you have a good running game opens up the passing game. And sometimes you don't even have to gain a lot of yards in the running game, but it's the threat of the run. And I think that's the case for the Pacers is that Karis LeVert gives you one more threat. He can make plays on his own. He's a willing passer. He had 7 assists the other night against San Antonio. So this is a much better team when you've got all your available players. And that's what the Pacers hope to have going forward. The news on Warren is good. He is still weeks away, hopefully not months away. But the fact that they're able to get him out of the boot means that foot is healing much better than they thought originally.
Am I right looking at it? 7 out of 8 games on the road?
Yeah, it's 7 of 8, 8 of 10, and then 9 of 10 at home. Now, for me and our broadcast crew, we won't experience that because we are staying. We're doing games still here in Indianapolis for the road games. But yeah, it's just sort of the nature of the schedule. The Pacers always in November, either before or after Thanksgiving, have at least their first West Coast trip, and that's what they have this week. Really, they got a break from the standpoint that they have Portland on Friday, Sacramento on Sunday. Then they have 2 days off, but then they have a tough back-to-back. Denver and Utah are considered 2 of the best teams in the NBA and clearly 2 of the best teams in the West, and you've got to play them on back-to-back nights. So, this will be a good measuring stick for this team. They have not yet won on the road. They had the best road record in the Eastern Conference last year. So, Jim, really, as you look at this, while you want to win every game, if you can win a couple of these on the road in the first 4, that would be really strong.
Pete, a former intern, I know, and maybe an employee of the Pacers back in our days in college, I remember, says, Chris, I've noticed a lot of empty seats for the games. What's going on with attendance? We have a team people should love and support.
Well, this is always a market that, sometimes is slow to respond. And last year,
it's a funky time of year right now, too.
Yeah,
You've got
is.
High school football going on.
Yeah.
You've got the Colts going on. There's so much happening right now.
Yeah, and so you look at it. I will say attendance at this part of the year is a little bit lower than it's been in the past. Now, remember, last year, basketball is different than football. Football for the Colts, there's 8 or 9 regular season games, and it becomes an event every Sunday or tonight on Thursday. In the NBA, there are 41 home games, so there's a lot. So some people got out of the habit last year of going to games because they couldn't go to games, right? Early in the year, there was no attendance. Late in the year, there was limited attendance. And so a lot of people stayed home, and we think we put a very good product out on television. They watched on television. So I think it's getting the habit of people going back downtown. The other thing I would say is they're probably, it's better now, but there aren't as many people working downtown as there used to be. So there were a lot of people that were working downtown, and then they would stay downtown for the game before going south or north or east or west. So, it's a little bit of a concern. Last year, you had a down year, a disappointing year. You didn't make the playoffs. So there would be people that are here waiting to see, okay, what are you going to do? The prognosis before the year, they were still projected as a possible play-in team, not a playoff team. So there's probably a lot of factors that go into it. I will say that I've been impressed with the crowds that have been there in the noise and the enthusiasm. There was a lot of enthusiasm last night, especially in the win against the Knicks. So I think, as you said, Jim, it will gradually grow, especially as there is sort of less competition. Now, you'll have IU basketball and Purdue basketball and high school basketball and all those kinds of things. But you're right. It's an interesting time of the year. And if you think about it, last year there was no NBA basketball in October or November. You waited until December. So I think it's just getting back into, the regular beat of an NBA season. And you have success, people will come. We know that. You win games, people will come.
Plus, like I said, you got football ending up. It's still fall. It's not quite winter. And I think of basketball. I think of winter and cold, and so you can get inside and all that. But and the home games they've had has not exactly been against the bigger names of teams as well. So there's been a little bit of that, I think, as well.
Yeah, you'll have no problem. I can tell you that in November and December you have the Lakers and Golden State in town. You won't have any problem then, right?
No, not at all.
Because as many people want to come, and rightly so. I mean, LeBron James is one of the all-time great players in the NBA. The Lakers have a brand that there are so many fans across the country that watch that team. And then you have Golden State. People fell in love with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. They won 3 titles. So those games are upcoming in November and December. And I would say if you don't have your tickets for that game now, you better go get them because those will go fast.
Pete said he wishes he was in Indy. Some damn good seats right behind you and Quinn. Your broadcast is great to watch. Great job. I might have to get those seats in. But yeah, you mentioned the Lakers. It's not just the Lakers. Then you've got I just missed it. OG will be coming with and the Bucks.
Yeah, you've got Phil. Here's the next home game a week from Saturday, which I think is good. It's not good from a team standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint, the schedule over the next 2 weeks is good because you just have a Saturday game against Philadelphia and then a Saturday game against New Orleans, which you hoped it would be from a ticket sales standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, it would be Zion Williamson, but he's not yet playing. Then you have, I think you have 3 games on the road, and then you come home for the night before Thanksgiving, the Lakers, the night after Thanksgiving, OG Anunoby in Toronto, and the Sunday, the Colts play at 1 against Tom Brady and the Bucks, and then the Pacers play the Milwaukee Bucks at 5:00. So there will be a lot of people that will do the double. They'll go
double dip right there. Baby.
Yeah, they'll go to the Colts game at 1:00, walk from Lucas Oil Stadium over to Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That's a heck of a Saturday or a Sunday.
Oh, not many places do you get to do that. I mean, we're talking New York type of situations. Right. That doesn't happen in a lot of places.
And when you think about it, downtown is walkable. You can go park your car Sunday morning, go tailgate at the Colts game, walk to Gainbridge Fieldhouse. If you tried to do that in New York, you'd be at Madison Square Garden. You'd be battling all the traffic to get out, and you'd have to find your way either to East Rutherford Stadium or back, Giant Stadium. So, sometimes we take things for granted that we have here in Indianapolis. I mean, we saw that with the NCAA tournament last year when the entire tournament was here in Indiana and you were bouncing back and forth between Lucas Oil Stadium and the field house. I mean, we take for granted what we have, but that weekend when you have Lakers on Wednesday, Raptors on Friday, Colts and Bucks on Sunday, Pacers and Bucks on Sunday, I mean, that's a heck of a sports 4 or 5 days.
Absolutely. And is the Valley Sports, are they any closer to coming to a resolution with that? I know that has been just a pain in everybody's side. Yeah. Even the people that don't have it, and then of course the teams, and it's really ridiculous that they can't get this stuff taken care of.
It'll get solved at some point, but I don't think it'll be during this NBA season. You read a lot about MLB working on its own streaming situation. Bally or Sinclair is talking about developing their own streaming package. The one good news is if you do like to stream, it is available on DirecTV Stream, which is the AT&T streaming service. They've got all of the Valley Sports stations. Where it is, there's no YouTube, there's no Hulu, there's no Sling, and from a satellite situation, there's no Dish. But it's on DirecTV. I've got AT&T Uverse. It's on Xfinity. It's on virtually every cable. It's every cable system throughout the states. So hopefully that'll all get solved. That whole regional sports network, streaming, linear, that model is in flux as we speak. So hopefully, I wish I had the short-term answer for people. I did see what Mark Cuban is doing down in Texas. If you sign up for DirecTV Stream, they're going to give you a $50 a month rebate for the 5 months that the Mavericks are on, which I think is pretty significant. I mean,
yes, it is.
Yeah. So I think people are going to try to be creative. We continue to just put the best product on we can. Our TV ratings are still good, through the linear model. And there are people that are available to stream us. If you have Xfinity and Uverse and all that, you can use the Bally app to watch games. But we are missing those people with Hulu and YouTube. And, hopefully that'll be changed at some point soon. I think the way all these things work, I just don't see it happening during this NBA season, which is unfortunate. But hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
I'm surprised Mark Cuban just hasn't taken it over himself and done it for the league as smart as he was, where he made his billions in that industry. Pete hit back up, said his internship was Reggie's second year. He drove him around to the RCA Dome for the Crossroads Classic in his 1978 Cutlass Supreme, cranked once bitten, twice shy with the windows down. Fun time. Can you imagine that? Well, next time you see Reggie, I doubt he remembers that.
Pete Clausen.
Pete Clausen, my good buddy. We went to college together at IU, but I remember when he was an intern up there. But that's hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. So,
great stuff.
I mean, sometimes we all have those memories of what we've done. There was a time, probably 5 or 6 years ago, that we flew in after a game, and Paul George's car would not start. And it was like 2:30 or 3 in the morning. And Paul is like, hey, I'll just call Uber. Well, we're out at the lot where we park. Uber would have no idea how to find us, right? And so I just go, Paul, it's no big deal. I'll drive you home. And so he lived out at Geist, and he just got in my car, and I drove Paul George out to his house. And I mean, it was the funniest thing. But to look at Paul's face when his car was sitting there and it would not start. And we were fearful to jump it because we thought we might ruin it. It was one of those cars, very expensive car. It had the battery like in the passenger side on the floor. I mean, it was, so we didn't want to mess it up.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but a former major league pitcher that was the CBS analyst back in the 90s. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here, but he did it with Tim McCarver. It's Jack Buck and Tim McCarver, and I had to go pick up Tim McCarver at the airport. Well, my muffler was jacked up, so I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I pick him up at the airport, and he gets in, and I turned the radio up pretty loud too, but it was because I was trying to hide the sound of that muffler. And I'll never forget him turning me. He's like, hey, you mind if we turn the radio down a little bit? And I'm like, yeah, no problem, Tim.
Those are all the things that you remember. I mean, I remember as many things or more off the floor or off the field. People ask me about great games and great calls and those types of things. And I can think about those, but I think about all those moments in sports that happen away from the playing floor.
Oh,
the playing field. Those are the things that would be chapters in books.
Oh, they're great, man. Just like having you on is great, man. I cannot thank you enough. Don't work too hard, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, take care. Thanks.
The great Chris Denari joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry. If you're down in southern Indiana, Sellersburg, go see Dr. J and get that championship smile from Reynolds Family Dentistry. Hey, we're back with Clayton Sayfie. We're talking Michigan after this on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Hey, Clayton, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good. I see your name all the time.
Likewise.
And then I see who was it? Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. I reached out to. So I haven't talked to them about On3, but I'm looking forward to talking about that off the air, of course. But remind me it's On3, right?
Yes. Yep.
And there was something specific On3. Let me put it over here.
Yeah, it's just a $1 for a year sign up for this week, so limited
and
time.
Where do they go?
They can just go right to thewolverine.com, which is fine. Yep. And then just for reference, last name pronounced Sayfie.
Sayfie, gotcha.
But yeah.
I'm the worst at interjecting letters that are not even in a name.
That's fair.
Because
I mean, you have to talk a lot, so it makes sense.
I am the worst. Like for whatever reason, I will put an L in your name for no reason because my eyes tell me there should be an L there, and there's not.
Yeah.
And I think I did
Selfie.
Right.
I think his name looks like Selfie.
Maybe.
I know people have said that.
Where are you? Are you in Ann Arbor?
Yes. Yep.
How long have you been with On3? Or were you with the Wolverine prior?
Yeah, so I was with the Wolverine. I've been with the Wolverine over 2 years.
Did Alt Coleman go to On3?
Yeah, the Notre Dame site is coming over on January 1. Because just since their contract is
Who started On3?
Shannon Terry.
Were they
he started
here regionally, or where are they from?
From Nashville. So he started about a couple months ago, but it had been in the works for a while. He started Rivals in 24/7. So this is his third. Wow. But Ryan mentioned that he was going to pass along to Stu if you wanted to talk, but he just wasn't sure exactly how he should go about it in terms of.
Yeah. Well, because I'll have, it would take me another 2 years probably.
Okay. And I know there's some that are in that same boat that are coming, but
because it's kind of funny. I had that same idea I do a lot.
I don't mean to interrupt. We're coming back from break though. Sorry.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is a good-looking Thursday out there. I hope you're having a great day. It's been fun for us. Man, lots of good guys on already. Clayton Sayfie's joining us now from thewolverine.com as Indiana gets set to travel to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Well, they'll travel there tomorrow, but they'll play on Saturday to take on the Wolverines and their 110,000 best friends up there in the big house. Clayton, how are you, sir?
doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you joining us. Last week, I after having seen Michigan State play the week before, I actually bet on Michigan. I don't do a lot of betting, but I bet like a couple 3-game parlays, and one of them was Michigan to beat Michigan State. I'm like, Michigan State just not that good. And I was surprised to see but of course, the rivalry games, things go different ways. But I was surprised to see Michigan not win that game and to Michigan State to go on. But that means they're just going to be pissed off this week.
Yeah, it's I'm with you. I watched most of that Indiana-Michigan State game, 2 weeks prior, and then Michigan State had the bye. But I was like, man, this Indiana defense, we know it's pretty good against the run. They were stopping Kenneth Walker, and he had been shut down by Nebraska as well at, less than 100 yards. And then he goes off against Michigan for 5 touchdowns, the most anyone's ever rushed for against the Wolverines in a rivalry game. And now he looks like the Heisman frontrunner. Reading a couple of these lists, he's number 1 at the top right now, and that could obviously change. But so it was interesting to see that. This loss really stings for Michigan fans. They're still number 7 in the country, but you would think they're outside of the top 25 by the way fans have reacted. And it's calmed down a little bit over the last couple of days. But It stings because you had a 16-point lead more than halfway through the third quarter, and Michigan State, give them credit. They maximized every opportunity they had. Every big play went for a touchdown, and Michigan stalled out in the red zone, settled for 4 field goals. So that was pretty much the story.
This has been a funky college football season for me. And I guess it shouldn't be that surprising because we're coming off of this weird, funky COVID year.
Yeah.
I guess I expected things to just get right back to where they were the year before, and they're not. There's besides Georgia, I don't think there is a dominant team in college football, and they're normally we've got 3 or 4 or 5 teams to talk about. There's usually 1 or 2 that are at the top like there are right now, but there's still 3 or 4 or 5. They're like, right. I'm not seeing that. I'm like, Cincinnati is not that good. Michigan State, they execute. They didn't make a lot of mistakes against Indiana, but they weren't that good.
Right.
And I'm not seeing this dominant teams out there, which is crazy. Other than, like I said, Georgia's looked damn good. But maybe that makes it more fun. Maybe that's going to make it more exciting at the end of the year because you don't know who's going to do what. But it's also going to make it more difficult to see who ends up in that Final Four playoff spots. I know people are of all years saying, well, this is the year for Cincinnati. And I'm like, bullcrap. I've seen them play. They're not the top 4 team. They're not one of the top 4 teams in the country. No way. But it's going to – if they go undefeated, it's going to be tough to keep them out.
It will be. And I don't know, though. I mean, it'll be tough. And I think –
although the committee's already said that –
right. Putting them at 6, I think, sent a message where, well,
yes.
And they don't have many marquee games ahead. And I know they didn't put SMU in. And so they're really kind of, I don't want to say disrespecting, but they're undervaluing or, depending on how you look at it, not valuing it, very high, the American Conference. So that's interesting. And man, I mean, you're right. I mean, look at Indiana last season and look at Michigan last season and how they flipped. I wrote something about that just to, how the trajectories of both teams been completely flipped since last season. You see it with a lot of other teams that were really down last year and are better this season. You mentioned it around college football, Clemson fell off, but you also look at the Big Ten East. Ohio State is still on top there, but they don't look as unbeatable, and they have some flaws themselves that I think I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan State knocks them off. I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan knocks them off at the end of the season. So, it is more fun. You said more fun. I've been having more fun watching some of these games around the country in the Big Ten.
I think it's actually helping Ohio State, though, because they're not having the pressure that they normally have had of being that team from the Big Ten. Not everybody is saying, oh, well, they're the team. Well, because we don't know who the team is. But that loss to Oregon obviously hurt them, but it came in the early part of the season, which is to their benefit. But and then the Big Ten West. Man, Iowa starts out looking like, okay, they're going to own that daggone thing. And then all of a sudden they just fall off the mountain. And who's in the lead right now? Minnesota? I'm like, what are you
I think it would
me?
be Minnesota. Yeah. Right
and
now.
I'm like, they've lost 3 running backs. They're not that good. It's like, wow. It's almost weirder this year than it was last year, because last year you kind of understood why with all the things that were going on. This year, like, well, everything's back. You can practice. You can do all that stuff now. And why are they so bad? And it just shows you, I guess, how football is such a tougher sport to get and keep at a higher level, because you've got 22 guys on the field, and 22 guys have to be doing exactly what they need to do, as opposed to 5 for football or for basketball or whatever. It has just been it's a little weirder season for some reason.
Been hard to gauge. I mean, when you come in the summer and you try to go off of, all right, who's returning from this team and what stats are, but there's so much that goes on. I mean, when you look at Michigan, for example, which was, had one of the worst seasons in program history. Now it was Big Ten only, so you factor that in, but they replaced 6 of their assistant coaches, and it's a completely different team. When you look at stats, you don't account for a guy coming out of nowhere and emerging. And there's plenty of those guys on this Michigan team that are in the rotation now that we weren't even talking about a year ago. So it's very hard to predict. There's 100 guys on these teams. There's 85 scholarship players. And sometimes guys exceed expectations, or, somebody, in injuries. I mean, look at Indiana and the injuries that they've had to suffer. So it's just damn hard to predict. And when you look back at last season, I think we all took a little bit too much stock in 6 games, 8 games, depending on how many teams played. And we're all kind of looking like fools for it. But nobody was right. So, we're all kind of in the same boat. And, man, in our business, when we have to talk about these things, it's like, you got to throw some stuff out there. And I guess sometimes you're wrong. But, yeah, man, I'm excited for this matchup on Saturday. Indiana's always played Michigan tough. So, I guess we'll see what happens. But 20-point spread doesn't seem like it's going to be too close this time.
No, and that's the same way it was with Ohio State. And last year I was like, oh, they were a 21-point underdog. And I'm like, I'll take all those you want to give. And then this year I was like, that's not enough. It was weird how it changed. And you talked about expectations. And normally there are not a lot of expectations for the Indiana football program, but under Tom Allen that had changed and there was a upward moving trajectory. And the expectations were probably higher than ever, legitimate expectations for this season because they had what they needed to have, we thought, for what I saw last year and what they had coming back. But it was not even close to being at Iowa. It was like, what the hell? Michael Penix is not the Michael Penix that we saw last year. I don't know how much that even has to do with his knee injury because there were so many other things going on. The offensive line, that is the biggest question mark because they had everybody back from a line that did great last year. And this year they couldn't hold water in a bag. And so it's like, what is changed? So it's hard to understand that. And you've gone through now three quarterbacks, if you include the walk-on that played. So now they've got a 4th different quarterback playing, a true freshman. And the receivers, Ty Freifogel, not having the season that he was expected to have. The offense has just not been productive. And it's like just question mark after question mark as the season goes forward. And in football, you don't have 3 games a week like you do in basketball to make up for that, man. It's an event each week, and those events kind of slide away. Indiana, of course, expected to be in a bowl game. They've been in back-to-back January bowl games, and that was the expectation again. Well, hell, they're not even going to make a bowl game this year, and that is shocking beyond belief. Of course, unless they were to shock somebody and win 6 games, I don't know that that's going to happen. But it's just been an unbelievable different year. I talked to it earlier with Clemson. They've fallen off the cliff. It's just odd to see this football season, but it's going to be kind of fun just to see the difference and what happens.
No doubt. And in going back to Indiana, you mentioned an 18-year-old quarterback and an offensive line that struggled. Caleb Jones, the right tackle, I think has given up 5 sacks on the season, according to Pro Football Focus, 25 pressures. And when you look at this Michigan defense, the strength is on the edge with Aiden Hutchinson, an All-American, and David Ajabo, who's really come on. So I think that's going to be something to watch. If he gets some heat in his face, if McCulley, assuming that's the starter, gets some guys coming after him early on in that game, he takes a couple shots. I think that's going to be tough for Indiana. But yeah, I mean, it's.
Do you think Michigan? You think Michigan will be going after him?
Yeah, I think so. And
I'm kidding. They're going to do. They're going to try to knock him out. Not necessarily knock him out, but do exactly what you said. If they can get a couple early shots on him, I mentioned this. It's sectional championship week tonight or Friday in high school football here. That's what he was doing a year ago. He was playing in front of 3,500 people probably in a sectional championship, and then Saturday he's going to be playing in front of 110,000 with guys that are trying to tear his head off.
And he's done a good job. I mean, last week, I know Maryland's defense is terrible, but 14-25, almost 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, no interceptions, taking care of the football, and he's mobile and he can run. So watching some of those highlights, I was impressed by what he did. But you're right, it's just a tough challenge for a kid who was in high school football a year ago, especially going up against a Michigan team that's a little more veteran in the front 7 and in the secondary too. Really all over that defense. So it'll be tough for him, especially with, as you mentioned, you don't have Whop Phillier anymore. You have a Ty Freifogel who does not look like the guy who went off against Michigan last season. I really like Peyton Hendershot. I've liked him for a couple of years, and it seems like he's been a good, target for Indiana. But
the last game or so, they've implemented the tight end a lot more. They didn't do that during the season.
Interesting. So, yeah, it just doesn't feel like that same team. So it's kind of hard to get a read going into this one. But, I feel like it's going to be a challenge for an Indiana offense that only averages 22 points a game. But on the other side of the field, Michigan likes to run the football a lot. Now, last week they aired it out and threw 44 times, or actually more than that, but 44 from the starter Cade McNamara. Indiana's defense is really good against the rush, 37th in the country. So they're pretty stout. Micah McFadden, Cam Jones. I mean, those are some, they're still doing stuff on defense. And I always like Tom Allen coach defenses. So, I think, they might be able to do some things against a Michigan team that could have a little bit of a hangover. It's funny when we talk to some of these players and coaches on Monday and, their press availability of last week, they look like they were ready to go out and play Michigan State right then and there. We talked to them Monday and then Tuesday night this week. It doesn't have that same vibe. And I know rivalry is always going to be different, but if they do catch them off guard, now they've said all the right things, but you're not going to know how this team's going to respond from a loss until you see them out on the field. It's going to be a cold night game. If they're not into that game, and I assume that they will, but there's always that chance, then I think Indiana could come in and maybe make this a low-scoring, muck-it-up type of game. I think that's going to be their best shot.
Well, yeah, they have to, because otherwise, if Michigan makes a play, whether it's on defense or offense, and gets Indiana down early, man, that's a long, long night in front of 110,000 people who just want to see you eaten by the Lions. It becomes a long night, especially if you're 18 years old and you've never done that. So, yeah, it depends on how they go. We're not done, but before I forget, Clayton's with thewolverine.com. And if you're happen to be listening as a Wolverine fan, you want to go there, because for just $1, thewolverine.com, you get it for a whole year. We'll get that put up there. You go the Wolverine.com, $1 for the whole year. So just go there. But I've been to the big house one time. I tell everybody it's the loudest place that I personally have ever been. I was actually still in school when I went up there a long time ago. And I remember my roommate, who was a former player, we were up there together, and I was talking to him. I had to cup my hands and yell into his ear to tell him something. And it blew my mind. And I'm like, this is just unfreaking believable. Unless you experience it, you cannot understand it. And to be out on the field and trying to call plays and do this, forget about it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a tough environment. At the Big House, 110, as you mentioned, largest in college football. At the same time, the way it's shaped with no upper deck and, the end zones are kind of open. It's a lower bowl kind of underground, actually. The sound gets out. So it makes it all that more impressive that in some of these games, it's super hard. I mean, we saw – so one of the most electric environments that I have ever seen, and that talking to people that have been for, around longer than me, was the Washington game earlier on this season, night game as well. But, early, good weather. People were there early and all of that. First big game back after COVID. And, I mean, Washington took a delay game on its first snap because they couldn't get lined up. They couldn't communicate. So it's a daunting environment. And, I think these Michigan fans who haven't had a ton of home games really since starting out with 4 straight are going to be excited out there on Saturday night. At the same time, like I said, there's less talk about this game maybe than there even was about Northwestern, who's, not a good team a couple weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see how the fan base responds. Because I'll tell you, I mean, the Michigan fans are great, but sometimes they can be a little on and off with their team. And this is the number 7 team in the country, but it doesn't feel like that around here. But I still do expect a good environment. And for an Indiana team that's playing some young guys like that, it should be pretty tough, and especially offensively.
Yeah, I wish I was going up there just for the experience of it. But it's amazing that, you just mentioned you could have 110,000 people, but all of them may not be into it because it's Indiana. They're going to, after what Indiana's done here of late, they're going to expect this win over Indiana, especially watching their defense the last couple of weeks, which had been absolutely phenomenal. I mean,
Yes.
they had Cincinnati shut down. And they lost until they lost Micah McFadden, and then that kind of changed the fortunes there. That may have been really a mark in Indiana's season right there. When they lost Micah McFadden in that Cincinnati game, they had held them to 1 first down up until that point.
Yes.
And man, things just turned there, and it's like, wow, it's like their season really switched at that moment. But I'm not going to say that that's why, because offensively they still have not been very good. They've not run the ball well because the offensive line. They haven't thrown the ball well because the offensive line, I guess. But they also haven't had Ty Freifogel, the only true wideout that really, because they lose DJ early on, so they don't have a deep threat. They didn't have anyone that was really throwing the ball well deep. So they've just not had a sustainable offense. And that was shocking, I think, for a lot of IU fans. It sure was for me covering them.
Yeah. I agree. Watching that team void of weapons, but you mentioned it. I mean, being under pressure so much. And that's the thing that I think concerns me if you're Indiana in this game, is that I don't think Michigan's going to have to blitz a ton to get pressure. They've cut down on blitzing a little bit this season. New coordinator and Mike McDonald, filling in for Don Brown. And man, Indiana was one of those teams that exploited Don Brown's defense last season. It's one of the reasons why he's no longer here. So I think it's gonna be tough sledding for an Indiana offense that has struggled to protect a passer. He's mobile. He could get out potentially. And Michigan's had some lapses against, running quarterbacks this season on scrambles, not even design runs, but, it might be pretty tough.
Michigan, they have probably had more coaching changes in this, offseason. And to have the success that they've had after that, that's pretty remarkable, because that is a lot of change. And it usually takes a while for that kind of change to take hold. But of course, they needed to change. Defensively, they weren't very good. Mm-hmm. But they made all that change. And man, you can see the differences for Jim Harbaugh's team.
It's shocking. Coming in, my expectation, and again, we talked about this earlier, expectations before this season didn't always play out, but my expectation was that it'd be a much improved team from last season, not hard to do after how bad they were. But I thought it would take some time for things to get up to speed. You're breaking in a new defense. They promoted Sharon Moore to offense or co-offensive coordinator. So some changes there schematically with what they were doing on that side of the ball as well. You mentioned a bunch of new assistant coaches, 6 of them, including Mike Hart coming over from Indiana. He's done a fantastic job with the running backs there. You see a duo of guys that each have 10 rushing touchdowns on the season, are both nearing 1,000 yards and could potentially get there by the end of the season. So all of that to come together so quickly right out of the gate. You saw it in the first game against Western Michigan, and then they dominate Washington statistically and were able to win that game pretty handily, and then just rip off 7 straight wins. And they're the 5th Michigan team in the last 45 years to win their first 7 games. So what they've done is impressive for anybody's standards, but let alone a team that was kind of hitting that hard reset button. And some people have described it as this is the Jim Harbaugh 2.0 era, because he's like, okay, he looked in the mirror, took a pay cut this offseason with his contract extension, decided to make a lot of different moves, including to his recruiting staff. I mean, we're talking wholesale changes, and for it to come together this quickly and have them in the top 10 in November playing really meaningful football games, I think is, pretty remarkable and something that not a lot of people expected. Really no one around here.
Absolutely. And the one, if you could say, I'm not even going to say a positive for Indiana, but Michigan plays Michigan State last week. They've got Penn State next week. Yeah. Indiana can hope that maybe they're on a low from the Michigan State loss, and that maybe they're looking ahead to Penn State, although Penn State has not looked that good here of late either.
Right.
And then, of course, Ohio State later on. And they got to play a Maryland team that can throw the ball. At least Indiana made them look like they can throw the ball. So the last 4 games that Michigan plays are meaningful games in the Big Ten East.
No doubt. And I was kind of looking back at how Michigan has responded to some tough losses against Michigan State over the last few years when they have lost. And one of them was Indiana going to overtime in 2017, if you remember that game with, Karan Higdon scored the game-winning touchdown, but barely survived in Bloomington. In 2015, Michigan lost to Michigan
overtime?
State.
Was that the double?
Double overtime. And then in 2015, Michigan lost to Michigan State, had a bye week, but even 2 weeks later, and that was a really, really tough loss with the dropped punt. If you probably have seen that clip go viral every now and then.
Yeah. I think I've heard of it.
Right. So 2 weeks later, after a bye, they barely get out of Minnesota with a win. And an okay Minnesota team coached by Jerry Kill back in those days. But, man, it's been tough. And I know Indiana's been good. When you look at the 2017 team, Indiana, that was their upward swing. Felt like they were due for a big win. Michigan was able to fend them off. So this is a little bit different in that Indiana's not that good this season. And that's me giving them credit for being a pretty darn good team in the years past. But at the same time, Michigan has struggled coming off of some tough losses in the past. This team, they insist, is quote unquote different. They've been saying around here that, that they're able to respond to adversity and, that, they stick together and all this. But this is the true test because it's the first time we've seen them off a loss. So Saturday night is going to reveal a lot about Michigan. And hey, I mean, Indiana has a shot here as well. I'm not counting them out at all.
We will certainly see. Clayton, Sayfie, I cannot thank you enough. Make sure if you're a Wolverines fan and you're listening to this, go to thewolverine.com. Like I said, you can get Clayton's coverage and a whole host of others there for $1 for the entire year, covering your Wolverine fans. Clayton, I can't thank you enough. Look forward to having you on again as whether it's basketball or whatever we're talking about, but we certainly look forward to it, man.
Definitely. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Clayton Sayfie from thewolverine.com. Cannot thank him enough. We'll be back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Absolutely.
I love to talk hoops too, so.
Well, we'll do it. But as soon as it gets started, we'll have you back on for both of those and tell Ryan I said thanks. And and I'm looking forward to chatting.
Sounds good.
That was interesting to hear that. That's funny because, like I said, a buddy of mine that comes on each week from damn it. What am I trying to think of, John?
I don't know. You don't have many context clues. I'm trying to help figure it out.
Well, I'm trying
to. Is it a co-host?
Yeah, it was Dustin.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday Tradition.
Dustin Schutte.
Dustin Schutte was Saturday Tradition. I started having that same kind of, I'm like, you know what? I just started thinking that along those same lines. But yeah, well, I look forward to chatting.
Sounds good.
Everybody,
I'll
everybody listening. People on YouTube can hear us, and they're all like, "What are they talking about? What's he talking about?"
Oh, can they hear us? Okay.
Just the people on YouTube. That's why I'm being cryptic.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why there's nothing been said on. That's why I'm keep being.
Yeah, sometimes people get confused. We're constantly live on YouTube because it's a live stream, but the radio breaks are for radio.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we haven't said anything crazy then.
Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Like I said, I keep going cryptic on you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And tell Ryan, I'll reach out to Ryan too.
Sounds good. I'll let him know.
Thank you very much, Clayton. I appreciate you, brother.
Yep. You too. Thanks.
Have a great day, brother.
You too. See ya.
All right. So when we come back, I saw this clip on Twitter and I downloaded the video of it. While we were in that last one.
It's because you're a superstar. I didn't say it.
Yeah, you were close, but you're good. But it's a video of this kid. He had to make a free throw or layup, a free throw, a 3-pointer, and a half-court shot for $10,000 of college tuition. And he hit all of them.
Well, you're not supposed to spoil it.
Well, why else would I show the video? Radio doesn't know. Radio won't see. Well, whatever. We're gonna do it anyway.
Of course we are.
You're going to have about 7 minutes-ish when we come back. Here we go.
Beat radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coy, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, we're back.
Welcome back, everybody. Appreciate you here on this Thursday. Hope you're having a great day. John's with us. John, you've found something interesting for us to watch or listen to, I understand.
Yeah, we've got a video. A kid at looks like a high school basketball game or a scrimmage of some kind.
For those of you that are listening,
the opportunity.
I'll have to go just to the. I'll have to give you some play-by-play, or as John is doing right now.
Yeah, or you can actually find this video on either my Twitter account or Jim's Twitter account at Jim Coyle ISB or at JAlden97. But this kid was shooting. He was given the opportunity, if he hit all these shots, a layup, a free throw, a three-pointer, and a half-court shot, he gets $10,000 of college tuition. I don't know that it's for a year or a semester or whatever it may be, but let's go ahead and take a look and take a listen.
And the crowd goes wild. Wow, he had that. That's pretty good. He had a layup, a free throw, a three-pointer, and then he goes back to half court and just sunk it. And then there was the buzzer went off. So I guess it was timed as well because that went right after the buzzer. Pretty cool.
Yeah, he was falling, it looked like, as he was taking his half-court shot. That wasn't in form of any kind. He got pretty lucky on that last one, but he still hit it.
Oh, man. Everybody's talking about the crypto on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. That's beyond my pay grade, man.
Bitcoin, Dogecoin, there's other ones too.
Dogecoin?
I think it's pronounced Dogecoin, but it's Dogecoin. I don't know. It's a mess that hopefully I never have to mess with myself.
Let's see who of the football games this weekend. Got to find some good ones to. I don't bet much at all. I like to bet like 3-team parlays each week, just a little bit. Last week, you know who killed me?
Was it Indiana, Maryland?
Well, they
bet
did,
on that?
but not. They did, but I bet the under.
And I'm sure you didn't get that.
Oh no, they were lighting it up. They were both lighting it up. I didn't expect that, but also Michigan hurt me.
Here's an interesting game. I know you hate the ACC and you hate North Carolina.
I don't hate them. I don't hate them. They're terrible. I don't hate them.
You have
terrible.
Undefeated number 9 Wake Forest on the road at North Carolina, which has underperformed. Do you think Wake Forest goes down this week?
The fact that you just said undefeated number 9 Wake Forest makes me throw up in my mouth. And it's just such a joke. No,
and UNC is favored by 2.5 points.
That's because the ACC sucks.
A 4-4 UNC team. Granted, it is a home game.
I don't care where they're playing it. It doesn't matter. There you go right there. A 4-4 team is favored over a top 10 undefeated team.
Here's the thing, though. Do you think a 13-0 Wake Forest team gets in the college football playoff if they win every game?
No. Absolutely no.
Man, I don't. Now here's the thing. I understand that they probably don't have the talent to be in the college football playoff, but I don't think.
Look at where they are in the college football playoff. Where are they in the college football playoff?
Number 9.
Okay, that's the reason the college football playoff put them at 9. That's the respect they have for them. 9. That
I think there's a chance. I'm not saying they deserve it, but I definitely think there's a possibility.
nope. Nobody wants to see Wake Forest play anyone.
Well, it doesn't mean that they can't get in. Enough teams screw up, and they're 13-0 going into the last weekend. You may see Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons, with the smallest Power 5 stadium in the country. Smallest. Even smaller than Northwestern's Ryan Field, potentially in the college football playoff. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
It's not going to happen. It's not going
Let's
to happen.
go ahead and wrap things up. We got about a minute and a half.
Oh, good. Hey, looking forward to tomorrow. What's our lineup tomorrow, brother?
Let's see, we got Dylan Sin co-hosting. We're going to have Alec Lasley here talking about some Indiana basketball recruiting. We're going to
get caught up on hoops. There's been what I mentioned earlier that who was that kid that I talked about, the top 23 that or
I don't remember his name.
Kid that Indiana's in his final 5. We'll be talking about that with Alec and
we'll have Matt Taylor talking about tonight's Colts game. We'll have Zach Osterman as always, and we'll also have Jeffrey the Greek, second appearance, talking about some Big Ten football as well. So plenty of stuff coming up tomorrow on the docket.
Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, looking forward to seeing if they can get on the winning trail and keep that going tonight. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star tomorrow, looking forward to that. And, of course, Alec Lasley from the Hoosier.com, get us caught up on basketball recruiting. Looking forward to that next week, man. The men's Mike Whitson's basketball show starts Monday at Southern Stone Restaurant. So it's all about here, man. It's about to happen. And can't wait for it. It's been a fun day today. I hope you guys had a blast. Thanks to everyone who was with us. Of course, Clayton Sayfie. Who I can't even remember. There was
Dustin Schutte, Chris Denari.
There you go. And looking forward to doing it all again tomorrow. But more importantly, you guys. Without you all, there's no reason for us to be here. Can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. We appreciate the comments. We'll be back to do it all again. Thanks to John, the producer. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.